Okay, let's get started. So today we're going to talk about how to avoid a negative review. And this is our overview for today. So first we're going to go over a few tips for vetting your guests to make sure that they're a good match for your home. Then we will talk about the arrival and keeping your guests happy while they're in your home. And then we'll go over a few of our review policies and our review process, just so everybody can kind of understand that. So here we go. So the vetting process. So this is a really important part of making sure that your guests are going to be a good fit for your home and that they're going to be happy throughout their stay. So we do recommend a quick phone call with your guests, even just 5 minutes, and you can learn a lot about the guests and they can learn a lot about you and your home. And then everybody can make sure that they're a good match for each other. So it's not just that you want them to be a good match for your home, but they also want to make sure that they fit with you and they like your home as well. So, and if you don't do a phone call, you can do some effective email and text communications. But I really do think these days, with everything being so automated and you don't have to talk to anybody about anything, that 5-minute phone call is even that much more effective nowadays because people don't often talk directly. So even just a quick call is super helpful. And on that call, you can ask a few questions like, what brings you to the Cape? Tell me more about your group. How old are your kids? And then you can make connections and say, oh yeah, I have kids that are this age, or are you planning to bring pets? And if they say yes, then you can say, oh, I have a dog, or I have a cat, or whatever the situation may be, just to build connections. And then you also want to be honest about your home shortcomings when you're connecting with them initially. So the example I always give is, at my house, we don't have perfect air conditioning. So there's central AC upstairs, and then downstairs we have some window units, and it's definitely cool in the house during the summer, during the hot days, but it's never going to be super freezing. So I always talk with my guests and make sure that they understand that that's the situation at our house and make sure that's a good fit for them. So some people might say, oh, that's fine, we're going to be at the beach all day. Other people might say, oh yeah, well, my husband really likes it to be freezing cold in the house, so this won't be a good fit for us. And that's fine. You don't have to say yes to every inquiry, and you can definitely say no if you feel like they're not going to be a good fit for you. And the last piece here is, don't compromise in your vetting process when you're scheduling a last minute booking. So I know, especially this year when everything's super competitive and people are really trying to fill all their weeks for the summer, don't compromise if you feel like you just want to get them in there and fill that week. Make sure that they're still a good fit. Make sure you go through all the steps in your process, and don't just try to fill that week without talking to someone or communicating with them. All right. So the next slide is about guest arrival. So you really want your guests to be delighted when they first walk into your home. So the number one way to do this is maintain an exceptionally clean home. So you want to have excellent cleaners, because so much relies on these cleaners, so that when the vacationer walks in, they walk into a clean, fresh smelling house, and that's their number one first impression is how clean your house is when they first walk in. You could also leave a welcome gift. That's another nice thing for the guests, giving them a good first impression. You can also provide something fun at the house, so fun things for grown-ups and kids alike. So outdoor games, maybe a tub of local ice cream in the freezer, bottle of wine, some s'mores. Maybe if you offer a fire pit, make sure there's wood in the fire pit. It's little details that they get excited about and feel like you're really paying attention to them. Also, a handwritten note is another nice thing to go with a gift. And so if you're on Cape, you can do these kind of things, leave the little gift and then go about your day. If you're off Cape and you're not around during your turnovers, you can speak with your cleaners about having a little prepackaged gift, even with a handwritten note. And it can be a generic handwritten note, or it can be specific for each different rental party, depending upon how you want to do it and how your cleaners can put that gift out for you. But sometimes if you have a locked cleaning closet, you can just put that in the cleaning closet and then your cleaners bring it out. And then communications with your guest upon arrival and really throughout their whole stay. But upon arrival is super important. So make sure you're available when they're going to be checking in that day. You really don't want a guest to show up and then have a question about the lockbox or where the key is hidden or where the welcome book is or how to turn the internet on. You really need to be there for that initial check-in time, or you not be there, sorry. You need to be available for that initial check-in time, and then any communications around check-in. So if you don't hear anything from your guests, you can send them a text message, or you could send an email, but most guests aren't going to be checking their email on the day they're arriving probably. But just send a quick text to confirm that all is well. And then if they report any issues, just really try to address those immediately, because you don't want a guest to arrive and then be waiting for you to fix a problem that may have come up. Right. So, okay, the next part here is keeping your guests happy during their stay. So you really want to make sure you try to keep your guests as happy as you can while they're in your home. If they check in and they say everything's great, that's not a cue that you can just, check out and go about your business and not pay attention to them. You have to keep paying attention and make sure that they're happy throughout the whole stay. So, let's see here. So you want to lean on your support team. So if any issues arise during their stay, make sure you have a plumber, a handyman, an HVAC person, to fix your AC or your heating, someone who does pest control and lawn care or irrigation management. So if anything arises with these people or with these areas during their stay, make sure you get in touch immediately with the people on your support team. And these should all be set in advance. So if you're new to renting, make sure you connect with a plumber, make sure you connect with a handyman, have a handyman come do a small job at your house so you can get to know them and make sure they're, responsive and available throughout the summer. Same with the HVAC, have your AC person come and test the air conditioning before your guests arrive to make sure it's working smoothly. Pest control should be a preventative issue. So you should be having pest control people come visit your house and check for issues to prevent pest issues and then deal with them right away if they notice something happening. And same with lawn care, irrigation, test all that stuff, test the irrigation before the summer starts so that you don't have to have people there working on it while your guests are in the home. And if a situation does come up that you have to deal with, try to diffuse the situation right away. So definitely convey what's important to the tenant is important to you. So, if the air conditioning breaks, tell them, yes, you understand this is very important. Air conditioning is a big deal. Get in touch with your support team right away, and then set the expectation for the vacationer. So vacationers might not understand that it's really hard to get an HVAC person into your home right away on the Cape in the summertime. It's just a really busy time. There's a short supply of professionals that work in the air conditioning industry, and you may have to wait to get someone to come in, and then you may have to wait to get a part to be fixed. So make sure your guest knows you've contacted who you need to contact, let them know what the timeline is, and let them know what to expect. Because if you just leave them hanging and you don't explain why it's taking a couple days for things to be fixed, then they just might think that you haven't even called anyone yet. And then definitely stay polite and calm throughout the whole interaction. Even if the guest is upset, you're the professional, so you need to maintain the professional communication there. Then when things go wrong that were caused by the guest, so if a guest broke something, how do you know when to charge them, when to take it out of their security deposit or not take it out? So, we recommend small things like wine glasses, dishware, coffee carafe. Maybe even the patio umbrella fits into that for your situation. Those kind of things are wear and tear, and those are going to break, every now and then. I always tell my guests to put the patio umbrella down, and occasionally a gust of wind will either pick it up even though it's down, or they'll forget and they'll leave it up. And so, things happen. And I would just say be prepared to make minor repairs free of charge, and don't be nickel and diming them with the security deposit. Now, if something major goes wrong, that's clearly the fault of the vacationer, then that's when you want to talk to them and have a discussion about who's going to pay for what and how much the vacationer is going to owe you for a problem that happened. You don't want the vacationer to be surprised if you suddenly take money out of their security deposit. That definitely should be a conversation you have with them, and that they're well aware in advance. Okay, and then going over our We Need a Vacation guest review policies and guidelines. So this is the link to the full guest review guidelines if you want to check that out. And I think Kelsey can probably put that link into the chat for us at some point. And then here we go. So one of our newer policies is that the guest reviews have to be submitted 90 days after check-in. So this is a way to keep the guest reviews accurate and fresh, and make sure that the vacationer is leaving the guest review when they've recently been in the home and it's fresh in their mind. We've had a few reviews that came in, a couple of years later, and one of them was a negative review, and it just feels like it's too long for the guest to be waiting 2 years before they leave you a review. So we've set it at 90 days. Right now, we're still working through the process of making that official. So if you do have some guest reviews from last summer, you can probably squeak a couple of those in before we solidify this. But in general, we're going to be looking at making sure guest reviews are left 90 days after check-in. So really, one of the best ways to get a guest to leave a review is right after their stay. So you can even do the same day they're leaving, send them a text message with the link to the review page, and they can leave a review while they're sitting in the car on the drive home, or, right away when they get home, or whatever, while it's all still very fresh in their mind. All right, so... And then our guest review process. So this is how the guest reviews work for We Need a Vacation. So basically, the review is sent in by the vacationer, and then all of the reviews are checked to make sure they meet our guidelines. Then we send a copy to the host, to the homeowners, you guys, and then you can submit a response to that, and that's called the owner response. And you just do that by logging into your homeowner and going to the guest reviews page, and then you can see with each review where you can submit the response, and then the review will be posted within 7 business days. So if you have a guest that says, I submitted the review last night, but it's not posted on your listing yet, this could be why, because it has to go through a couple steps before it becomes public on your listing page. All right, so after all this talk about reviews, and as homeowners understanding how important reviews are for you and for your listing, we wanted to humbly ask you to write us a review. So if you write us a review, Google's the best place to do it. It really helps us to build trust with vacationers as well as potential homeowners who are looking to list their houses on our site. It also helps us to boost our SEO, which, if you're not familiar with that, it's basically where We Need a Vacation comes up in search results. So if somebody searches for, Cape Cod vacation rentals, where is our listing going to show up in that list of items? It just helps us build that SEO up, and then that way your listing is going to end up getting more views and hopefully more inquiries based on that. And so to write us a review, you're just going to want to open up a Google browser, search for We Need a Vacation, and then you're going to look at the Google summary of We Need a Vacation and click on reviews, and then from there you can write a review. And I think Kelsey also is going to put a link in the chat for that as well. So that brings us to the conclusion of our presentation, and anybody have questions? I guess we'll start with what Kelsey had in the chat. Kelsey, if you want to unmute yourself and let me know if any questions came up.
Yeah, we had one question about a security deposit fee versus a damage fee, and just your opinion on that.
Okay, sure. Let me just close out the presentation here. All right. Okay, so security deposit versus damage fee. Basically, the difference there is the damage waiver or damage fee is a one-time payment that the vacationer makes, and it's non-refundable. And then the security deposit is a payment that the vacationer makes that is refundable at the end of the stay if everything goes well. And the standard that most of our homeowners use is the security deposit. However, some people do the damage waiver, and a lot of times, like property management companies or realtors that run rentals, they will also do the damage waiver. So that's basically the difference. And most, like I said, most homeowners do the security deposit.
Harry, I might interject here too that
Sure.
The people who use the damage waiver are usually the property managers or realtors who have a number of listings, and it's really hard for them to keep track of, who was in the house that day when that lamp broke, and so they use it as a fund from which to draw if there's some damage in one of the properties, and they don't have to go chasing after someone. But most homeowners have one home, and the damage deposit that realtors or property managers charge is usually quite small, maybe $50, maybe $100, non-refundable. But as a individual, most homeowners are charging $500 and up, which you wouldn't want to charge if it were non-refundable. And so I know of very few people who use the damage deposit if they have only one house. It's, somebody can do, usually don't, but it's possible that someone could do extensive damage requiring the use of all $500 or more. If you only had a damage deposit, that would not cover very much. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joan. Anything else? Any other questions, Kelsey, from the chat?
Nope, there was no other in the chat.
Okay, great. Anyone else want to come off a mute and ask a question about how to keep your guests happy?
Hi, I'll ask one other question, or it's just a comment. I'm the one who often puts in a request for the king size bed filter, so I feel like that keeps guests happy if they want a king size bed. So just keeping me noise high on that, because I do feel like as a user of the platform, I do use VRBO and Airbnb to go other places, and I always use that filter because I don't want to have to filter through all these houses that don't have a king size bed. So thanks for the consideration.
Right. Yes, we've definitely heard that request loud and clear, and it is in our queue of items to be addressed, for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else want to come off mute and ask a question? All right. Well, we're always available. Phone number and our support at weneedavacation.com, so you can call or email or chat. If you go on our website, you can do a live chat with us during regular business hours. So we're available, and I guess just good luck this summer, keeping your guests happy, and we want to see a lot of nice 5-star reviews coming in from everyone. Okay, thanks everyone for joining.